Hello, I'm Geno with Music Villa. Today on Geno Likes, we're going to talk about the new DXR speakers from Yamaha that have the little Mark II after them. Now, the DXR speakers have been around for a while. This is the latest incarnation. They've literally just landed in the store just in the last few days. And so I want to talk a little bit about what they've done. So quickly, the upgrade for this particular speaker, they look identical outside of the fact that it just has the little MK and then two eyes after it for Mark II. But what they've done across the board with these speakers is they've managed to lighten up the design a little bit. On the smaller the speakers that you go to, you don't really notice it, but on the 12, it's about 3 pounds lighter, which is really nice. They increased the power slightly, not even really enough to, when you're rounding up, not even enough to really see that as a number. The big deal is there's an increased size of the high-end driver. They've actually gone to a driver that's 1.75 inches from about 1.4. And what happens when you have a larger driver is you just get a smoother sound palette. So a lot of times with speakers, I like to kind of explain that they all have what we call a constant directivity type of horn. That's a fancy word, but basically what they're trying to do with high end there. If I do this with my hands and I'm trying to talk like this, obviously the sound gets kind of warped and distorted. So when we talk about constant directivity horns, what they're actually doing there is it's a lot of math to kind of deal with the driver moving, going to the horn so you don't hear that squawky sound. So in a nutshell, that's what they've really done with the new series speakers. So I want to talk a little bit about powered speakers and why they're so popular these days. I've been doing this for a long time. So a speaker, when you bought a speaker, there used to be one jack on it. And it was usually either a 1/4-inch jack like that or a raw terminal. And then later on, we came up with those speak-on jacks that kind of plug in and twist. That was the only thing you had. Obviously, we look at the back of this speaker, and there's a whole bunch of controls, and there's reasons for that. So I'm going to say this as quickly as I can, just to kind of give you an idea. Because when you're buying a powered speaker, sometimes people use the word active speaker. That was the first words that were actually used. A lot of people just think, oh, I'm buying a speaker. Well, you're buying a lot more than that. So real quickly here, back in the old days, when we wanted to make a sound system sound really good, we're going to talk about frequencies for a minute. So high-end frequency, the waves are really fast like this. So when you're out at a concert and you're outside listening to a band and the wind goes by and the high end just disappears for a minute. You hear it getting pushed around by the air. That's because those waves are moving really quick and the air is actually able to move it. Counter to that, and I like to say is if, the guy in 2 apartments down from you is cranking up his music, what do you hear? You hear his low end. Low end takes a lot of power to create, but once it's created, it moves through bones and walls and floors. That's why if there's a concert going up the hill, we can hear the low end. So in a nutshell, we have 2 totally different kinds of frequency. I didn't say that high end doesn't take a lot of power to create, but it takes a lot of power to push it through the air. So what we used to do to make that actually work better is we used to split those signals with a thing called a crossover, and then the high end and low end, and we'd even do 5-way systems, so you'd have high, high, mid, low, and sub sometimes. It was really nuts. But if we're just looking at a 2-way system, so the high end will go to one power amp matched to those drivers, and the low end would go to another power amp completely matched those drivers. So backing up, signal in, crossover, 2 power amps matched to the drivers. All that stuff is what's in these speakers these days. And the whole point and why you'd go to a biamped or triamp signal is the entire PA gets much more efficient. That's the word I'm looking for. It's much more efficient. Sounds so much better. If you take the same power and you just push 2 speakers with it, or you take the same power and you biamp it, it's like, wow, it's so clear, it's so punchy. So in a nutshell, when we're talking about an active speaker or a powered speaker, in most cases, in every case I believe in our store, you're dealing with a biamped active speaker. And the word active doesn't come because it has to be plugged into the wall or because there's a power amp in it. It's actually talking about, that's what we called that crossover. It was called an active crossover. So I just kind of spewed a whole bunch of junk at you, but I just really want everyone to understand that when you buy a powered speaker, you're not just buying a power amp and a speaker. You're getting all that great technology. In the case of companies like Yamaha, when they match the power amp and the driver, they're also time aligning the cabinet, so everything should just sound great. And these things do sound really, really wonderful. Quickly, let's talk about the features that are on the back of the new Mark IIs, and like I said, they're exactly the same as the old DXRs, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's actually just a microphone preamp. If you just want to show up at an event with one speaker and a cord and a microphone, there's a little switch here. Put it on microphone, there's a volume, plug it into the wall, turn it on, you're good to go. You can make announcements. Put that in line, that's where you're going to come out of your mixer and run a balanced signal in here. There's a through, which allows you to dump it to another source or another speaker if you like. Then there's two sets of stereo channels, a 1/4 inch and an RCA set. Now, why that's important to mention is there's a really kind of a strange output here that talks about the link out. And you can actually run, I could put the speaker on this side, do a presentation, put a speaker on the other side, and run one cable from here and run stereo just by plugging into one side. And that's what this little link is for. There's a stereo mono button. So it really saves you a lot of time and trouble. The last things that are on this speaker are some different contours. And what that's for is, you know the little loudness button on your stereo when you're listening to music down low, but you're not really pushing enough power to get that low end to make a sound. That's what the loudness button's for. So this actually has a little curve they call for the front of house or main, which does exactly that. It boosts your low end a little bit, boosts your high end a little bit. We can shut that off, or the really cool one is the monitor setting, because these things are angled great to set down on the floor as a monitor. In fact, give me a second. I'm actually going to do that. Perfect angle for a monitor. But when you do this, you've got more of the speaker touching the floor, which causes the speaker to what we call couple with the floor, and you get a little bit more low end. So that curve that I just played with actually takes your low end down. So whether you're using it on a stand or on a table or on the floor as a monitor, it will always sound good. And then the very last knob is when you incorporate a subwoofer. It just allows you to roll some of the low end out of the speaker. There are a lot of features on the Yamaha DXR Mark IIs. I urge you to come in and listen to them. I always say PA is not really a fun thing to buy. It's only fun. It's not fun when you buy it. It's fun every time you set up and play, because if your band sounds better or your monitors sound better, you enjoy yourself more. So you owe it to yourself to come in and listen to these. They're fantastic speakers. We keep a couple different sizes in the store, and they're on hand today at Music Villa. Thanks.